Hang on. Yes, okay. Welcome everybody to the class Mesilat Yesharim. This is our third class on Mesilat Yesharim. My name is Rabbi Moses Haber from Brooklyn, New York. It is an honor to be able to teach a topic that and a sefer that I find very, very interesting. That, as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, was a book that I read when I was very young, and I didn't see the value in it, and now I do much more so. And I'm very happy to be able to have this opportunity to teach it. So let's review. The last class we had, we asked, what is chovato shel ha'adam? Chovato shel ha'adam, what is man's obligation, man or woman's obligation in this world? Or better yet, the millisecond after you wake up in the morning and you open your eyes, while you're still lying in bed and you're staring at the ceiling or out the window, what is the answer to the question, what is my purpose today? What is man's obligation in life? And I'd like to make that question a little bit smaller into it's a very big question, but when I wake up in the morning, what gets me out of bed? What is my purpose? What is my destiny today? Meaning, what can I do today in order to get closer to my Creator, closer to Hashem, by fulfilling my own unique divine purpose? What is my chovah in this life? What is my chovah day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year? It is to get closer to Hashem, like we said last week, Kirbat Elohim li tov, to be close to God is good for me. Nothing else really matters. But how does one get close to God? How does one get close to your Creator? It is by fulfilling your own divine purpose that He gave you. So you have to ask the question, right before I wake up and get up and out of the bed, what do I do? What do I need to do more of today in order to fulfill my purpose? Do I need to teach more classes, like me personally? Am I being the best mother or father that I could possibly be? Am I giving enough of myself to the world? Am I doing what I need to do to make this world a better place in the image of God? Do I need to talk less lashon hara? Do I need to make better friends and communicate more clearly? Right. So these questions, when a person wakes up in the morning, what's my purpose today? Yes, I know my purpose. My purpose is, the end goal should be that I am moving ever so carefully closer to my relationship with God, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How does one get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? It is by imitating Him and imitating His midot. So that's what we dealt with last class. Now we are going to begin actually the first one of the 9 stages of development, of spiritual and social and personal development that Mesilat Yesharim that was written by Rabbi Moses Haber, writes out in his book. Some of those, I'll just read them for you now, so you have a little bit of an idea of where we're going. The first stage is watchfulness, something that we would call zehirut. The second stage is called zealousness, zerizut. The third stage is called nekiyut, cleanliness. And I'm not talking about physical cleanliness. Perishut, separation. Tahara, purity. Hasidut, saintliness. Anava, humility. Yirat het, fear of God. And then Kedusha. So there are 9 stages of spiritual, personal development. The first stage that we are going to talk about today, is, as you can see on your screen, is zehirut. Zehirut means watchfulness, to be watchful. Now, what does it mean to be watchful? It means to be as self-aware as you could possibly be about your existence. And the way that the Ramchal breaks this down is that for many of the 9 stages, he breaks this concept down into 4 separate subchapters. So if you're reading the book, and you want to do a read along with our class, he will first explain it. Then he'll talk about Helkei Zehirut, the different parts of Zehirut. Talk about Kiniyat Zehirut, which means how do I acquire the midah, the character trait of watchfulness. And then he'll talk about Mafsideh Zehirut, what causes me to lose the ability to be self-aware. Okay? So we're going to begin now with the definition of Zehirut, watchfulness. So if you're reading the chapter, he'll say in a very clear way, that a person exercises caution in his actions and his undertakings. In other words, that he is deliberate when he is doing something or he is thinking about what to do. In other words, when a person is about to plan out an action, a person who is Zahid will recognize that every single action, every single relationship that person is about to make has consequences and outcomes. And what the Ramchal is suggesting is that the first stage in personal development, the first stage in becoming a person who is close to God, is that you need to actively think about who you are and what your purpose is on this earth and your existence in terms of as existentialism, and to consider that everything you say has an effect, every cause has an effect, and everything that you do has an outcome. So what the Ramchal is explaining over here in this first stage of development is that you are required to be self-aware and watchful over everything that you do. Now, in the time that we're living right now, I would have to say that I'd like to shut off my brain every once in a while. I'd like to just go to the beach and relax. I would like to eat what I want, right? We have enough stress in our lives right now, going through COVID, going through all the riots. We have enough stress in order to say, well, I need some time. I can't activate my zehirut right now, my watchfulness. I can't watch. I can't do it. It's too much. It causes too much anxiety. And you could be right. You could be right by saying that now is not a time to be talking about Mesilat Yesharim. And it's funny because when I was preparing for today's class, I thought to myself, is this too much? Is it too much to be telling people to do a personal mental accounting of the choices that they're doing when we have so much other stressors? So if I will tell you, it is a lot. It is a lot to lead a life of thinking and of concentrating and analyzing one's deeds. It takes work and it takes a lot of energy and it does cause anxieties. But the beauty of the system is that it pays dividends in the long run. That everybody recognizes that when they are exercising physically, it pays dividends in the long run, right? When you go for that walk, we went for a walk yesterday. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. It was steaming outside. Yeah, it's true. We could have stayed home and had just had another cup of coffee or had another croissant. But at the end of the day, we did the walk. We sweated through it. It was boiling hot. When we came back, I felt better for it. So yes, it's possible to leave Mesilat Yesharim by the wayside during these times of already, historically high levels of stress and anxiety. But I would say that no, a person who wants to achieve perfection, a person who wants to get close to Hashem, continues on this platform. Now, a metaphor that Ramchal would use over here is that, of course, a person who knows to think about his choices or her choices and the consequences and the outcomes will choose wisely. Because, of course, a person is smart enough to know that he should choose the correct path in life. Even animals, the metaphor goes, always seek to preserve their life. And they run away from anything that is dangerous. They always sniff food in order to sense whether it's beneficial to them. They always consider what path to go on to make sure that there's no bigger animals out there. They make sure to find a place to sleep at night that they won't be attacked. So the Ramchal brings the metaphor from, if even an animal knows that in order for him to live and to prosper, he has to make his choices appropriately, so to a man who has so much more sechel and so much more potential should be able to, now that he knows or she knows the correct path, should be able to make sure that he or she makes the right decisions to keep on that path. Now, the ironic thing is that in Yeshayahu, there's a famous metaphor that Yeshayahu says to the Jewish people, even an ox or a hamor knows its master. Even a hamor knows the trough, the place where he needs to go every day to eat, that his master gives him food. And the ironic thing is that the Jewish people often forget who our master is and where our food comes from. Right? Everybody knows that we can't control the rain, we can't control the heavens, we can't control the food stores, but sometimes we forget. We forget that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in control, and we need to repair and beautify our relationship with Him in order to get the beracha that He decides, not the beracha that we decide. Sometimes we think what we know is good for us, but no, Hashem knows what's good for us. We think we know, but we don't know for sure. So a second metaphor that could be used is not only about animals, but could be used about a person who's walking on a bridge and deliberately closes their eyes as they're walking. You know, I like to play this game. When I was a kid, I would hold my father's hand or somebody's hand, and I would close my eyes and see whether I was going to walk into a pole or not. My kids do the same thing. Now, okay, when you're a kid, it's okay. But as you grow into adolescence and you purposely close your eyes, you purposely become ignorant to the consequences of your actions, is a silly thing. And the metaphor that the Ramchal uses in this perek is, why do we as human beings sometimes have purposeful ignorance when it comes to making choices? It's as if we throw our hands up and say, you know what, whatever happens, happens. No. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you an intellect. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you sechel. And He wants you to utilize those kelim, those tools, in order to make the right choices. And sometimes when we have adolescent children, we want to shake them and say, wake up, open your eyes, make the choices now that are positive, that will affect you later positively. Because sometimes adolescents take a long time to become self-aware and purposeful in their existence, because they're coming from childhood where, you know, everything was given to them. They didn't have to make a lot of choices. They had to do good in school. But besides that, their world was very, very, very narrow. And as a child grows up from childhood through adolescence to adulthood, that adolescent period for parents is very difficult, because you're looking at yourself and all the choices you've made and your degrees of success, and you want your adolescent child to wake up and to make those choices as well. And sometimes it's very, very difficult. Adolescents take a long time. I myself was, I think, a late bloomer, waking up and figuring out what I should be doing and becoming more serious about the choices that I make. But you could even think of it as a metaphor for Bnei Israel, right? Bnei Israel in the Midbar were children. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us water, gave us man, gave us clothing. We didn't have to worry about anything. But the transitional period between, let's say, the first second we stepped into Eretz Yisrael with Yoshua and the Kibush, and during the times of the Shoftim and the Melachim, it was very difficult. That was our adolescence. That was the Jewish nation's adolescence in saying, hey, are we making the right choices? Are we thinking about the purpose of our existence? And are we zahir? Are we watchful with the decisions that we're making as a nation? So this metaphor of childhood, adolescence, and adulthood, and choices, and becoming self-aware and watchfulness is very, very, very important. And it connects, by the way, to the 3 weeks that we're in. You can think about it. I don't know if you can see my screen over here. I'm going to show pasuk. Let me just minimize this. I'm going to show a pasuk from Yirmiyahu, and this is specifically the problem that Bnei Israel had as a nation in the times of Yirmiyahu, which is the first temple, and it's a problem that we have today. Listen to this pasuk; it's beautiful, and I put 2 pictures on the bottom, and I'll explain it. Yirmiyahu Perek 8 pasuk Vav says, "Ikshafti va'eshma lo chen yedaberu en ish niham al ra'ato lemor me'asiti kulo shav b'mrusatam kesus shotef b'milchama." Yirmiyahu says, "I have listened and heard. No one speaks honestly today. No one regrets his wickedness and says, 'What have I done?'" Nobody's thinking, Yirmiyahu says in the first temple. And I would say that we had periods in Jewish history since then, and even today, that people are not thinking. People are not honest. What have I done? Who are they like? They all persist in their wayward course, like a horse dashing forward in the fray. Now, what's unique about a horse? If you look at the picture on the left-hand, bottom left-hand corner of your screen, horses have blinders on. Now, they're not blinders that completely block their vision. The reason why Yirmiyahu uses this metaphor is that the blinders only allow the horse to have a very narrow field of vision, which is only forward. If you look at it's sad. I mean, I had more pictures that I got from Google Images that were just horrifying what we do to horses. But if you look at this horse, he cannot look anywhere but directly in front of him. Ironically, at the same time I looked for this image online, they also had this image of this young man trying to do computer work, and I believe that he developed this device in order to help him concentrate, which seems to be positive. But really, if you look at it, what are the downfalls of having blinders on? And Yirmiyahu says the downfalls of having blinders on is that you're not really looking around. You think you know your goals. You think you know what you should be doing, and you're rushing forward. You're only rushing. And I get the feeling that living in a capitalistic society that we live in today, we're only rushing forward for success. And we have blinders on, and we're not thinking. We're not taking the time to pause and think and consider, what am I doing? Is what I'm doing good for the benefit of everybody, not just myself? Is what I'm doing helping me fulfill my purpose for existing, which is to get closer to Hashem? Am I considering how I'm talking today? Am I considering how I'm interacting with others today? Am I considering how I'm making decisions today? So what I would say is that this pasuk here reminds me of something that we talked about maybe a year or two ago in our classes, which is called habits of the mind. Everybody knows that a habit is habit of the mind is a very, very hard thing to break, right? Whatever the habit that is. Let's say you're always thinking about a person in a negative way. It's hard to stop. It's hard to stop and to reconsider and rebuild the way of thinking about that person. It's hard to stop doing things that become habits of the mind. Whether you're a drinker or a drug abuser or you're treating people a certain way, when you only are looking straight ahead and not at the ancillary or the periphery, you don't have the time and the space to evaluate. You don't have the time and space to evaluate, and that's really what the Ramchal would call the power of the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is going to put you under pressure. Is going to make you only drive forward like the horse and not consider reviewing the habits of the mind and not consider the choices that you're making. In essence, it's exactly what Paro knew about the Jewish mind. The Jewish mind and all human minds is that when it's under pressure, it can't think about anything else. I know this about myself. I know this that when I'm in when I'm asked to do a specific job, or I'm in a competitive situation, it's hard to think about anything outside of that issue right then. It's a weakness. It's a weakness, but it's something that we all have. Listen to this. Par'o. Think about all the way back in Messiah. Par'o says, "Tichpad ha'avoda al ha'anashim v'ya'asu bah v'al yish'u b'dvrei shaket." After Moshe Rabbeinu came to Par'o and he says, "Let my people go," Par'o increased the amount of work that the Jews should do. Why? Because he knows that if you have a lot of work, you don't have time to think about ideas. You don't have time to think about dreams. If you're exhausted when you get home from work every day and you don't have the time and the space to evaluate things, you're just going to continue working. He says, let heavier work be laid upon the men. Let them keep at it and not pay attention to deceitful promises, because he viewed what Moshe was doing as causing trouble. So he said, you know what? Just have them work later and longer, like people who we know today. And the later and the longer that you work, the less time you have to think about the effect of your work on people and how you're doing. You know, in our society today, I think we have overscheduling. And it doesn't give us time to think. I think we have over socializing. That when we are put as an individual in a larger social system, larger social setting, it's very easy to assimilate into that setting and to appease people and make them feel happy and do what you need to do to befriend people. But sometimes, not all the time, sometimes it comes at a cost of not allowing you time to evaluate the effects and consequences of your actions. I mean, essentially, what I'm trying to say with the over-schedulizing and the over-socializing is that if you fill up your time with work or socializing, you will not have enough bandwidth, to use a technical metaphor, you will not have enough bandwidth to analyze what you just did. Baruch Hashem, we have Shabbat. Baruch Hashem, we have a day like Yom Tov and Chol Moed and Shabbat that we have to analyze and to increase our bandwidth, remove some things that we're normally dealing with. We are all very happy now when we shut off our phones on Fridays, and we're very trepidatious when we turn them back on Saturday nights. I mean, I happen to think that the benefits of therapy that people go through is like it gives them time to work through some of the ideas that they're dealing with in a setting that is, gives them the bandwidth to do that. So look at this, right? I just want to tell you this. Contradicting the previous approach of shutting down the thinking that you should be doing is a suggestion from Haggai and then Mishlet. Haggai, one of the 12 minor prophets, says, Ko amar Adonai Sevaot, Simu lebabchem al darchechem. Put your hearts on your pathways, which means think about what you're doing. Think about the path that you've decided to take in life. Think about, what you decided to do today. Is this going to bring me closer or further away from the purpose of my existence? Mishle says, Al titen shena le'enecha utnuma le'af apecha. Don't relax. Don't give your eyes sleep and your pupils to slumber, meaning don't say, I'm going to take time off of thinking about my journey in life. He says, save yourself. He goes back to the metaphor of animals. Even a deer and a bird will not be lazy and lie down if they know that it's possible they're going to be trapped by a hunter. He suggests again about the animals. Lech el nemala atzel ve'ed derachecha be'hach. He says, you lazy bones, go to the ant. Go to that little tiny ant and see what it builds. It never stops moving. An ant is always on the move in order to dig and create a better, I don't want to say life for itself, but a better system where it can protect its existence. Shouldn't we be doing the same? If the animals are always on guard, you ever walk, if you ever go hiking, animals' ears are always up in the air. They're always trying to listen for danger. And why? Because they don't want to get caught. So Mishlei is saying, shouldn't humans be better than animals? Shouldn't we be even more aware and more prepared and more plan out our pathway better, to let you know that Amchal realizes that this is a very difficult thing. It's very difficult to escape the trap of the Yet Hara, to relax. And he says, at the end of the chapter over here, he says, you know what? You should know that as long as you take a step forward in the right direction towards analyzing, what we'll talk about in a second, which is called Heshbon HaNefesh, personal accounting, if you do the right thing, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be there to help you, and you are not alone, because you cannot beat your own sense of self on your own. I want to say that a little bit more carefully. You can't convince. Sometimes it's very hard to convince yourself of the right thing to do when you have pressures to do certain things. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help you. It's a famous saying that says, "Open up the gateway the size of a pin, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu will enlarge it to the size of a entire auditorium." Meaning, if you take the first step in moving forward to living a life with this personal accounting, Cheshbon HaNefesh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be there to support you. But you have to take that step. Moving on. Once there is a person who says, I'm going to do what's called Heshbon HaNefesh, which should be a daily accounting, which, like, just that's an accountant looks at the books of the business. He looks at the positives, he looks at the negatives, and he tells you at the end of the column in the spreadsheet whether you're up or down that way. So to those that do that will be successful and will be able to be what we call enlightened. I don't mean the enlightened period, which has positive and negative connotations, but I'm talking about a person will be enlightened. He will have a flashlight shown on his pathway. But there are those who are ignorant on purpose, and they are in darkness. Okay, and the metaphor of darkness is so strong in the words of the Ramchal. Listen to this for a second. There's a pasuk of Tehillim. It's not on the screen right now. It says Tasheh Hoshech Vihi Laila, and that's the Olam Hazeh. The Olam Hazeh can be a period of darkness for a human being, and he is required to use the light of his soul to broaden that light and to increase that light, so that his pathway, his life is filled with light and not darkness. Why? Because the pasuk in Mishlei says, "Derech reshaim ka'afela lo yad'u b'meh yikashelu." The metaphor of darkness is beautiful in the words of the Ramchal. He says, darkness can lead to two different mistakes. Right? If you think about it for a second, if you're going for a hike in the forest, and your flashlight goes out, there's two things that can happen. A, you could be walking and then trip on something that you did not see beforehand. That's one type of mistake that you can make when a person lives in darkness. You could trip on something that you did not know was an obstacle. You didn't see the obstacle there at all. It was too dark. You couldn't. If you knew it was there, you would circumvent it. The second mistake that a person makes in darkness is that his eyes begin to play tricks on them. That you begin to think that things are there when they're not, or things that are not there that are there. The question is, which one's worse? Right? We spoke about this also in a previous class. Which one's worse? A person who is dark, is not enlightened on purpose. They end up doing things and tripping on things and going down roads that are really, really not good for them. The second one is they begin to take paths and journeys in certain directions that they think is good. They see them. There's enough light to see them, but there's not enough light to give enlightenment to know that really this path is the wrong one. And that's really challenging. It's really challenging to ask the question, what path am I on? Am I on this path because it's truly emet, it's the right path? Or is my mind or my eyes playing tricks on me? Is it possible that my eyes are playing tricks on me right now, where what I'm looking at right now I think is good, is that really good? And I think that question you need to ask yourself on a regular basis. You need to ask yourself, well, the conclusions that my mind is making, is it really true, or am I being affected by certain biases? And it's very difficult. It's not easy. That's why you have to have good friends. You have to have good family in order to check. The person who says, I'm not going to walk in darkness. I'm not going to trip on something, will allow my eyes to trick me, is called an arum, shrewd man. Listen to this pasuk in Mishle. Arum ra'a v'nistar. A shrewd man, meaning a smart man, and a person who's always thinking, sees evil and takes cover, or makes sure not to go down that path. Uftaim, but the simple people who don't analyze themselves, who don't do what we call cheshbon nefesh, avru, and then they get in trouble, they get punished. So it's a very difficult process that I'm asked, that Mishle is suggesting over here. You have to be on guard at all times to make sure that you're doing what's called a personal accounting. So this was the end of the first class on Zehirut. I plan on getting into the Helkei Zehirut, Kiniyat Zehirut, and Mafsidei Zehirut in the next class. I think that each one of the Midot should take 2 or 3 classes. I'm not exactly sure now, but I invite you to watch the previous videos. You can sign on YouTube, my channel, Rabbi Moses Haber, and watch the previous channels on the Mesilat Yesharim, or even go and watch the other classes that we've given in our Reason and Revelation class. I invite anybody now, if you'd like to ask any questions, please ask some questions. I'll be here for you.